Have you ever felt that your silence was misunderstood, that your quiet nature was seen as weakness? Carl Jung believed that what society calls quiet is actually a form of hidden power, a power that introverts carry within them, silently, patiently, and deeply. In a world that celebrates noise, the introvert's greatest strength is often invisible, but invisible does not mean powerless. In fact, it is the silent power of introverts that Carl Jung said the world will never truly understand. The quiet misunderstanding. When Carl Jung first introduced the terms introvert and extrovert, he wasn't merely labeling personalities. He was mapping the very way human energy flows. For Jung, introversion meant the inward movement of psychic energy, a turning toward the inner world of thought, reflection, and imagination. Extraversion, by contrast, was the outward movement directed toward people, activity, and external validation. And yet, over the decades, society has distorted this idea. Instead of seeing introverts as carriers of depth, wisdom, and silence, the modern world too often mistakes them for being shy, antisocial, or weak. We live in a culture that rewards quick words over deep reflection, that values constant visibility over quiet presence. In such a world, the introvert feels like a stranger, even though their silent power is often the very thing that sustains the human spirit. Carl Jung observed that the introvert is not withdrawn because they lack energy. Rather, they are withdrawn because their energy flows inward, feeding an inner life that is rich, vivid, and powerful. To Jung, the introvert is like the roots of a tree, unseen beneath the soil, yet silently holding the entire structure in place. Without the roots, the tree cannot live. Without the inner depth of introverts, society itself loses balance. Think of the greatest thinkers, writers, and philosophers of history. Many of them were not men and women of noise, but of silence. Their power was not in how loud they could speak, but in how deeply they could think. Jung himself believed that true transformation begins not in the crowd but in solitude. It is in the stillness of the inner world that the seeds of wisdom are planted. But here lies the paradox. The modern world often punishes silence. In classrooms, the loud child is praised while the quiet one is told to speak up. In workplaces, extroverted energy is rewarded, while introverted thoughtfulness is overlooked. In relationships, the one who talks less is accused of caring less. The introvert becomes misunderstood, not because they lack love or intelligence, but because society has lost its ability to see power in silence. Jung believed this was a grave mistake. He warned that when a society glorifies only one mode of being, the extroverted mode, it risks cutting itself off from half of human wisdom. Just as night balances day, introversion balances extraversion. To misunderstand introverts is to misunderstand half of humanity. And this is where the silent power of introverts reveals itself. While the world rushes outward, chasing validation, noise, and constant stimulation, introverts journey inward. They discover truths that cannot be shouted in public squares. They touch realities that cannot be measured in applause. Their silence is not emptiness. It is a reservoir, a deep well of insight that, when finally expressed, carries the weight of truth. Carl Jung often said that the greatest danger for any human being is to live inauthentically, to live in a way that betrays one's true nature. For the introvert, this danger is especially sharp. When they force themselves to become extroverts, they lose the very essence of their gift. Their quiet power becomes buried under the pressure to perform, but when they embrace their introversion, when they honor their inward flow of energy, they become aligned with their true self. And in that alignment, their silent power becomes unshakable. So let us begin this journey. In this exploration, we will walk through the world of introverts as Carl Jung saw it, not as weakness, but as strength, not as absence, but as presence. We will uncover the silent power that introverts carry, the misunderstandings they face, the archetypes they embody, and the spiritual dimensions of their nature. Because if the world does not understand introverts, perhaps it is the world that is lacking, not the introvert. Part 2. Carl Jung's discovery of introverts. When Carl Jung first introduced the concept of introversion and extraversion in his groundbreaking work Psychological Types, 1921, he was not offering a simple label for personality. He was describing two fundamental orientations of human consciousness. For Jung, this discovery was not about categorizing people into boxes, but about explaining how energy, what he called the libido or psychic energy, naturally flows within us. According to Jung, the introvert directs their energy inward. Their attention gravitates toward their inner world, toward ideas, images, dreams, and reflections. The extrovert, by contrast, directs energy outward toward people, activities, and the external environment. Both tendencies exist in every person, but one usually dominates, and this dominance shapes the way we experience life, relationships, and even our spiritual path. To Jung, introversion was not about being antisocial or avoiding people. He stressed that introverts are not afraid of the outer world, they simply draw their strength from within. While an extrovert feels recharged by social interaction, an introvert feels restored by solitude. Silence is not emptiness for them. It is nourishment. Jung often compared these orientations to the roots and branches of a tree. The extrovert is like the branches, stretching outward toward the sun, visible and expansive. The introvert is like the roots, hidden beneath the soil, silent, yet essential. Without roots, the tree cannot stand. Without introverts, the world loses its foundation of reflection, creativity, and inner truth. But Jung went even further. He believed that introverts had a unique role in society. Because they turn inward, introverts become more attuned to the unconscious mind. They are closer to the hidden forces that shape human behavior, dreams, symbols, myths, and archetypes. This inner sensitivity allows them to notice what others overlook. Where the extrovert sees the surface of life, the introvert perceives its depth. Jung himself was deeply introverted. He spent long periods in solitude, reflecting on his dreams, exploring his imagination, and recording his inner experiences in what later became the Red Book. This massive work, filled with visions, dialogues with inner figures, and symbolic imagery, was not written for the public. It was Jung's private journey into the unconscious, and yet it became the foundation for much of modern psychology and depth therapy. For Jung, this was proof that the inner journey of the introvert is not only valid, but essential. Society may glorify action, achievement, and external success, but the true breakthroughs in human understanding often emerge from silence. Einstein, another great introvert, once said, "The monotony and solitude of a quiet life stimulates the creative mind." Jung would have fully agreed. But why does the world fail to see this? Jung believed it was because society has a natural bias toward what is visible. The extrovert's energy is outward, obvious, and easily recognized. The introvert's power, however, is invisible. It exists in their thoughts, their inner clarity, their silent wisdom. Because it cannot be measured in applause or crowds, it is dismissed. But invisibility does not equal weakness. In Jung's eyes, it equals depth. There is also another layer to Jung's discovery, the tension between introversion and extraversion. Jung never claimed that one was superior to the other. In fact, he emphasized the need for balance. Every extrovert carries an inner introvert, and every introvert carries an inner extrovert. But when one orientation dominates too strongly, the other retreats into the unconscious. For introverts, this means they must occasionally engage with the outer world or risk being swallowed by their own inner life. For extroverts, it means they must occasionally reflect inward or risk losing contact with their true self. This insight remains as relevant today as it was a century ago. In an age of constant stimulation, noise, and distraction, Jung's discovery reminds us of the importance of the inner world. Introverts are not broken extroverts. They are the guardians of silence, the carriers of unseen wisdom, the ones who remind us that not everything of value can be shouted from rooftops. Jung once wrote, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." This single sentence captures the heart of introversion. While the world runs outward chasing dreams, the introvert awakens to the truth within. And so, Jung's discovery of introverts was not a limitation, but a liberation. He gave language to a way of being that had always existed, but had rarely been honored. Through his work, the introvert could finally see themselves not as flawed, but as essential. As we move forward in this journey, we will begin to explore what Jung saw as the hidden strengths of introverts, the silent powers that society fails to recognize, but that shape the world in profound ways. Part 3. The hidden strengths of introverts. If society misunderstands introverts, it is because society does not see their strengths. But Carl Jung believed that these silent, invisible qualities were not only real, they were among the most powerful forces in human life. To Jung, the introvert carries a unique gift, the ability to uncover truth in silence. 1. The power of listening. In a noisy world, listening is rare. Most people listen to reply, not to understand. But introverts by nature are deep listeners. They absorb words, tones, emotions, and silences. Carl Jung noted that introverts often carry a sensitivity that allows them to hear not only what is said, but also what is left unsaid. This is why people often feel comfortable opening up to introverts. The quiet presence of an introvert creates a safe space. Their silence is not emptiness, it is acceptance. And within that space, others reveal truths they cannot share with anyone else. 2. Deep focus and reflection. Jung emphasized that introverts thrive in solitude because solitude allows them to focus without distraction. Unlike the extrovert who finds energy in movement, the introvert finds energy in stillness. This stillness is not laziness, it is clarity. Many breakthroughs in philosophy, science, and art were made not in crowded rooms, but in quiet studies, long walks, or silent meditations. Jung himself spent years reflecting on his dreams and inner visions before publishing his theories. His depth psychology was born not in the noise of debate, but in the silence of reflection. 3. Creativity and imagination. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious mind was a vast reservoir of images and symbols, what he called the collective unconscious. Introverts, by turning inward, have greater access to this reservoir. Their imagination is not random, it is symbolic. It translates universal truths into personal insight. This is why introverts often excel in art, literature, and philosophy. They do not just create for entertainment, they create to express truths that words alone cannot capture. The poet Rainer Maria Rilke, a deeply introverted soul, once wrote, "Solitude is the place where creativity begins." Jung would have agreed wholeheartedly. Chapter 4. Self-awareness and inner growth. One of Jung's most powerful teachings was the idea of individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming who you truly are. Introverts, because of their inward focus, are naturally drawn to this path. They question themselves, reflect on their motives, and explore their shadows. This self-awareness can feel heavy at times. Introverts may struggle with overthinking, but it also makes them more authentic. While others rush forward blindly, introverts pause, reflect, and realign. This inner dialogue makes them less likely to betray themselves, even if it means standing apart from the crowd. 5. Empathy and sensitivity. Because introverts live so much in the inner world, they develop a sensitivity to the emotions of others. They notice small details, the shift in someone's tone, the tension in their posture, the hidden sadness in their eyes. Jung described this as an introverted intuition, the ability to sense what lies beneath the surface. This sensitivity can sometimes feel like a burden. Introverts may become overwhelmed in crowded places because they absorb too much. But when channeled wisely, it becomes empathy, the ability to connect deeply, to heal, and to guide others through their own struggles. Tayasan 6. Silent influencer. The most misunderstood strength of introverts is their influence. Because they do not demand attention, people assume they have none. But true influence does not always shout. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it exists in the way a quiet teacher shapes a student, or how a thoughtful friend changes your perspective with just one sentence. Jung himself was such a figure. He was not a political leader or a man of crowds, yet his ideas reshaped psychology, philosophy, spirituality, and even popular culture. His influence did not come from volume, but from depth. But 7. Resilience in solitude. One of the most overlooked strengths of introverts is their ability to endure solitude. Where many people panic at the thought of being alone, introverts find peace in it. Jung believed that solitude was not isolation, but connection. Connection with the deeper layers of the self and with the unconscious forces that guide us. This resilience gives introverts a quiet independence. They are less dependent on external validation and more able to follow their inner compass. In a world that often pressures people to conform, this independence is a form of strength that cannot be broken easily. Der Pagaum. The hidden treasure. To Jung, these were not small strengths. They were treasures. In fact, he believed that modern society's obsession with extroverted energy blinds it to the wisdom of introversion. But the silent power of introverts is often what allows civilization to evolve. Without the thinkers, dreamers, and quiet creators, humanity would lose its ability to reflect, imagine, and transform. So when the world calls introverts weak, it is not describing the truth of introverts. It is revealing the blindness of the world. And as we transition forward, we will look at why society has misunderstood introverts for so long, and what Carl Jung warned about a culture that glorifies only noise while neglecting silence. Part 4. Why society misunderstands introverts. If introverts carry such hidden strengths, why does society so often mistake them for weakness? Carl Jung believed that the answer lies not in the nature of introverts, but in the values of society itself. The world glorifies what it can see and measure: noise, speed, visibility, and action. Silence, reflection, and inward depth are invisible forces, and because they cannot be measured in the marketplace of attention, they are often dismissed. 1. The bias toward noise. From childhood, most of us are taught that the loudest voice gets heard. In classrooms, the child who speaks up quickly is praised, while the quiet child is told to participate more. In workplaces, the one who speaks confidently in meetings is seen as a leader, while the one who listens carefully is often overlooked. This cultural bias equates loudness with strength and quietness with weakness. But Carl Jung warned that this was a dangerous illusion. True strength, he argued, is not always visible. It is often hidden in silence, in the ability to endure, to think deeply, and to remain centered when others are lost in noise. 2. Extrovert-driven culture. Modern society is extrovert-driven. Business, politics, entertainment, and even social media all reward visibility and constant engagement. In such a world, introverts often feel pressured to perform as extroverts. Jung observed that this creates a kind of collective imbalance. If a culture glorifies only extroverted energy, it suppresses the introverted half of human nature. The result is a society that becomes shallow, obsessed with appearance, disconnected from depth. The world moves faster, but with less wisdom. 3. The mislabeling of introverts. Because introverts often prefer listening over speaking, they are mistaken for being shy or antisocial. But Jung emphasized that introversion has nothing to do with fear. It is not about social anxiety, it is about preference. Introverts can interact just as well as extroverts, but they do not draw energy from it. They draw energy from within. When the world mislabels introverts, it creates unnecessary shame. A child may grow up believing there is something wrong with them simply because they prefer silence. An adult may feel pressured to hide their inner world just to fit in. This distortion blinds people to the gifts that introverts carry. 4. Productivity and misunderstanding. Another reason society misunderstands introverts is because of its obsession with productivity. The modern world values speed, multitasking, and constant activity. The introvert, who prefers slower reflection, appears less productive, but Jung would argue that productivity without depth is empty. 1,000 shallow tasks cannot replace one deep insight. Introverts contribute not by doing more, but by seeing more. Their value lies not in quantity, but in quality. Yet in a society driven by numbers and speed, this quality often goes unnoticed. 5. Relationships and the quiet misinterpretation. Even in personal relationships, introverts are misunderstood. A partner may mistake their need for solitude as lack of love. Friends may interpret their quietness as disinterest. In reality, introverts often love deeply and think profoundly about those they care for. They simply express it in quieter ways. Jung observed that introverts are not less capable of love. They are often more capable of depth in love. Their silence is not neglect, but focus. When they give their attention, it is complete and undivided. But because this is invisible to those who equate love with constant words or actions, it is easily misread. 6. Jung's warning. Carl Jung warned that when society misunderstands introverts, it does more than harm individuals. It harms itself. A culture that values only extroverted energy becomes unbalanced, cut off from reflection, imagination, and inner truth. Jung saw this imbalance as a spiritual danger. He believed that both introversion and extraversion are essential to human wholeness. Extroverts drive society outward, into progress, innovation, and expansion. Introverts drive society inward, into meaning, wisdom, and transformation. To neglect one is to cripple the other. 7. The silent revolution. But Jung also believed that introverts do not need society's validation to be powerful. Their strength is not dependent on applause. It is silent, inward, and unshakable. The misunderstanding of society does not erase the truth of their gifts. In fact, Jung suggested that sometimes the very misunderstanding is part of the introvert's calling. By walking a path that others cannot see, introverts embody the courage to live authentically. And in time, their quiet influence shapes the culture in ways louder voices never could. Transition. So, society misunderstands introverts because it is blinded by its obsession with noise, speed, and visibility. But within this misunderstanding lies a deeper truth. Introverts are not here to mirror society's expectations. They are here to balance it, to bring the wisdom of silence to a world that has forgotten how to listen. In the next part, we will explore how Carl Jung connected introverts to powerful archetypes, the timeless roles within the human psyche, and why these archetypes reveal the deeper destiny of introverted souls. Part 5. Jungian Archetypes. Introversion. In the quiet recesses of the human mind, where thoughts are weighed carefully before they are spoken, dwell those whom Carl Jung identified not just as introverts, but as seekers of truth. Introversion, in its truest sense, is more than a preference for solitude. It is an inner compass, attuned to subtle patterns, to whispers that others might overlook. To understand the hidden power of introverts, we can turn to the archetypes Jung described, the recurring figures in the collective unconscious that shape not only our dreams, but our destinies. Among these, 3 stand particularly close to the heart of the introverted mind: the sage, the creator, and the mystic. The sage is a figure of quiet wisdom. Unlike the loud proclamations of the extroverted world, the sage's insights are measured, deliberate, and patient. They do not seek attention. They seek understanding. For the introvert, the sage embodies the relentless curiosity that drives one to probe beneath the surface. It is the urge to question, to analyze, and to know the truth that cannot be gleaned from casual conversation or fleeting impressions. The sage does not act impulsively. Rather, they wait, observe, and then speak with clarity that only comes from a depth of contemplation. The creator resonates deeply with the introverted spirit because creativity often springs from reflection, not external stimulation. Introverts may seem reserved, but within their minds exist vast landscapes of imagination. The creator archetype teaches that solitude is not emptiness. It is a fertile ground. It is in these silent moments that ideas germinate, grow, and transform into something tangible, something the world can experience. For an introvert, every painting, every poem, every innovation is a bridge between their inner world and the outer one, a quiet offering that can shift perception without ever shouting. Finally, the mystic embodies the spiritual dimension of introversion. Mystics are attuned to the unseen currents of life, to the forces and truths that lie beyond ordinary perception. Introverts, drawn inward by nature, often find themselves wandering along this path without knowing it. They sense patterns, detect subtleties, and feel energies that others dismiss. In this way, the mystic archetype shows us that the introverted mind is not just a repository of ideas or a haven for creativity. It is a portal to understanding the hidden structures of reality. Through these archetypes, we see how introverts become truth seekers. Their quiet nature is not weakness, it is a lens. In stillness, they discern. In solitude, they perceive. While the extroverted world races toward noise and distraction, the introverted seeker waits, listens, and ultimately knows. As we reflect on these archetypes, it becomes clear that the gift of introversion lies in patience and depth. The sage, the creator, and the mystic are not merely fantasies of the mind. They are mirrors for the introverted soul, guiding it toward understanding itself and the world in ways that loudness and haste could never achieve. Part 6. The Spiritual Dimension of Introverts. If Part 5 revealed how introverts are drawn to the archetypes of wisdom, creativity, and mysticism, Part 6 takes us deeper into the spiritual landscape that naturally unfolds for those who live inwardly. For many introverts, life is not merely a series of external events, it is a journey within. In the quiet, beneath the clamor of the world, they encounter questions and truths that others seldom notice. Introversion, at its core, creates a unique space for inner journey and awakening. While society often equates activity with achievement and sociability with success, the introvert discovers that the richest experiences can occur in reflection. Meditation, deep thought, journaling, or simply sitting in silence become gateways to self-discovery. In these moments, the mind unclutters and the heart becomes more attuned. It is here, in the quiet recesses, that the introvert encounters their own essence, their values, fears, desires, and the subtle truths about existence itself. Silence is not merely the absence of sound, it is power in its purest form. The introvert learns to listen to themselves and to the rhythms of the universe. While the extroverted world seeks answers externally, introverts cultivate insight internally. This capacity allows them to understand complexity, perceive nuance, and act with a wisdom that often appears effortless to the outside observer. Silence, then, is both a shield and a lens. It protects the introvert from distraction while sharpening their perception of life's deeper layers. It is no coincidence that the universe often seems to choose introverts for these deeper insights. Jung himself observed that those who turn inward frequently become the conduits of profound understanding. Their natural inclination toward introspection, combined with a tendency to seek meaning rather than approval, positions them uniquely to perceive truths that are often invisible to the hurried, distracted world. The introvert's mind is not passive. It is active in quietude, processing, connecting, and interpreting the subtleties of existence. Yet this spiritual dimension is not about isolation or detachment from reality. Rather, it is a fusion of inner depth and outer engagement, where understanding oneself allows one to engage with the world more authentically. Introverts may not speak loudly or seek recognition, but their insights, born from contemplation and patience, can guide, inspire, and influence in ways that are subtle yet enduring. In essence, the introvert's spiritual journey teaches a fundamental truth. The world does not always value silence, yet silence cultivates clarity. It is in these still, reflective spaces that introverts find the keys to understanding life's mysteries. In the quiet, they awaken. In reflection, they discover the power that lies not in volume, but in depth. Part 7. The Struggles of Introverts in the Modern World. While the inner life of introverts is rich, profound, and deeply connected to the currents of thought and spirit, the modern world is often a relentless challenge. The very traits that allow introverts to perceive deeply, reflect carefully, and awaken spiritually also make them vulnerable in a society designed for constant interaction, stimulation, and noise. To understand the full spectrum of introversion, we must acknowledge the struggles that accompany it. One of the most pervasive challenges is overstimulation. In a world saturated with social media, constant notifications, and the unending hum of activity, introverts are often forced to navigate a landscape that feels overwhelming. Where extroverts may thrive on social energy, the introvert absorbs it, internalizing the chaos until it becomes a weight on their mind and spirit. Every ping, every message, every demand on attention is a potential drain, leaving little space for the quiet reflection that sustains them. The modern world, with its emphasis on speed and connectivity, often fails to honor the pace at which introverts naturally operate. Closely tied to overstimulation is the tension between loneliness and solitude. Introverts value solitude because it nurtures thought, creativity, and self-awareness. Yet, in a culture that equates social presence with success and happiness, the line between chosen solitude and imposed loneliness can blur. Introverts may find themselves misinterpreted as aloof, disengaged, or even lonely, when in fact their inner lives are active, full, and rich. Solitude is their sanctuary. Loneliness is the world's misreading of their silence. This constant misinterpretation can lead to feelings of alienation, even when they are fully capable of meaningful connections. Miscommunication is another struggle unique to introverts. In an environment that prioritizes quick conversation, casual small talk, and outward displays of engagement, introverts often find their depth misunderstood. Their words are measured, their thoughts carefully chosen, and their energy reserved for what truly matters. In fast-paced interactions, these qualities may be misread as hesitation, shyness, or disinterest. The introvert's subtlety is often lost on a world that prizes immediacy over introspection, leaving them to navigate not just social interaction, but the constant task of explaining or defending their nature. Moreover, introverts face the pressure to conform. In workplaces, schools, and social environments, extroverted behaviors are often rewarded: networking, self-promotion, verbal assertiveness. Introverts, who may prefer observation and reflection, can feel marginalized or undervalued. The tension between their natural tendencies and external expectations can create internal conflict, self-doubt, and the temptation to overextend themselves in ways that are ultimately unsustainable. Yet, in these struggles lies a quiet lesson. Every challenge faced by introverts is, in essence, an invitation to cultivate resilience and self-awareness. Overstimulation teaches them the importance of boundaries. Loneliness highlights the value of meaningful solitude versus empty isolation. Miscommunication reveals the need for patience and clarity, and societal pressure underscores the necessity of authenticity, of remaining true to one's inner world while navigating the outer one. In facing these modern challenges, introverts develop a strength that is subtle but enduring. They learn to move through noise without losing their clarity. They learn to hold space for themselves even in the midst of demand. They learn to communicate in ways that honor depth over volume. In other words, the struggles of introversion, while taxing, also serve as the crucible through which the introvert's silent power is refined. As we recognize these challenges, it becomes clear that the modern world is not inherently hostile to introverts, but it is unaccommodating. The gift of introversion, then, is also a test, a call to preserve one's inner life, cultivate resilience, and navigate a society that may not always understand, appreciate, or respect silence. By confronting these struggles consciously, introverts learn to transform obstacles into opportunities, miscommunication into clarity, and solitude into a source of strength. In the next part, we will explore how introverts can actively harness their silent power, turning the very qualities that feel like challenges in the modern world into their greatest assets. Part 8. How introverts can harness their silent power. The challenges of the modern world are real. Overstimulation, miscommunication, and societal pressures can weigh heavily on the introverted soul. Yet, within these very challenges lies an extraordinary opportunity, the chance to harness a silent power that the world often overlooks. Introverts, when aware of their strengths and intentional in their actions, can transform their inner depth into a source of influence, creativity, and lasting impact. The first step lies in embracing the inner world. For introverts, the mind is not merely a place of retreat, it is a fertile ground for insight and imagination. By giving themselves permission to reflect, to sit in silence, and to explore their thoughts without judgment, introverts cultivate clarity and wisdom. This is not escapism, it is preparation. While the world often rewards those who act quickly and speak loudly, introverts gain an advantage by understanding themselves and their surroundings deeply before they engage. Their choices become deliberate, their words intentional, and their actions aligned with their inner truths. Equally important is the practice of setting boundaries. Silent power thrives in space and focus. The introvert must learn to protect this space from the constant demands of the external world. Saying no is not weakness, it is strength. Limiting time in draining social settings, minimizing overstimulation from technology, and prioritizing meaningful connections over superficial ones allows introverts to preserve the energy necessary for deep thinking and personal growth. Boundaries are not walls, they are bridges that allow introverts to interact with the world on their own terms. Deep thinking is another cornerstone of harnessing silent power. Introverts naturally process information internally, often seeing connections that others miss. This ability can be transformative in leadership, problem-solving, and innovation. While extroverts may lead with visibility, introverts lead with insight. They observe, analyze, and act with foresight. In professional and personal contexts alike, this reflective approach often produces results that are quiet but profound. Solutions that endure, influence that inspires, and leadership that commands respect without demanding attention. Creative expression is a natural extension of this inner work. Art, writing, music, or even carefully considered speech becomes a vessel for the introvert's unique perspective. By channeling thought and emotion into creation, introverts communicate in ways that are subtle yet powerful. Their contributions may not always be immediate or loud, but they resonate deeply with those who encounter them. Here, silence becomes a tool for connection, transforming introspection into impact. Harnessing silent power also requires recognizing the value of patience. The introverted approach is rarely impulsive. Ideas and insights are nurtured slowly, emerging fully formed rather than half-realized. In a culture obsessed with speed, this patience is a hidden strength. It allows introverts to navigate complexity with calm, to approach challenges with measured consideration, and to make decisions that reflect true understanding rather than reactive impulse. Ultimately, the silent power of introverts is not about dominance or visibility. It is about authentic influence. By embracing their inner world, setting boundaries, thinking deeply, and expressing creatively, introverts harness a force that is subtle yet transformative. It is a power that shapes ideas, inspires others, and quietly changes the world, often without fanfare or recognition. The path is not always easy. It requires self-awareness, courage, and a willingness to honor one's nature even when it conflicts with societal expectations. But for those who walk it consciously, the rewards are profound. The introverted mind, once seen as quiet or reserved, becomes a beacon of clarity and strength. In the next part, we will explore Carl Jung's warning and wisdom, guiding introverts on the dangers of denying their nature and the importance of balancing their inner and outer worlds. Part 9. Carl Jung's warning wisdom. While the journey of the introvert is filled with quiet power and profound insight, Carl Jung cautioned that neglecting or denying this nature can carry significant consequences. Introversion is not a trait to be suppressed. It is an essential part of the human psyche, a guiding compass for understanding oneself and the world. To ignore it is to risk fragmentation of the self, a disconnection from one's deepest potential, and a life lived on the surface. One of Jung's key warnings was the danger of denying your introverted nature. Many introverts, responding to external pressures or societal expectations, attempt to adopt extroverted behaviors, always speaking, always engaging, always performing. While adaptation can be useful, constant suppression of natural tendencies leads to exhaustion, anxiety, and a gradual erosion of authenticity. The inner world becomes crowded with unprocessed thoughts and unmet needs, while the outer world continues to demand energy that the introvert cannot sustain indefinitely. Jung observed that those who ignore their inner life risk becoming strangers to themselves, trapped in patterns of self-denial that hinder growth and fulfillment. Closely tied to this is the concept of shadow work, a cornerstone of Jungian psychology. The shadow represents the parts of ourselves we reject, deny, or remain unaware of. For introverts, shadow work often involves facing internalized judgments, fears of inadequacy, or discomfort with social expectations. It is not an easy process. It requires courage to examine one's vulnerabilities, to acknowledge suppressed emotions, and to integrate aspects of the self that have long been ignored. Yet, this work is transformative. By confronting the shadow, introverts gain resilience, clarity, and a deeper understanding of their own motivations and desires. Shadow work allows the silent power within to flourish with authenticity, unburdened by denial or self-repression. Another element of Jung's wisdom is the importance of balance between the inner and outer worlds. Introverts naturally gravitate inward, finding solace and strength in reflection and solitude. Yet, life requires engagement with the outer world, relationships, responsibilities, and societal participation. Jung emphasized that true fulfillment comes not from isolation alone, but from harmonizing these realms. An introvert who can navigate the world without losing their inner compass achieves a rare form of equilibrium. They remain grounded in self-awareness while interacting effectively, influencing meaningfully, and contributing authentically. Jung also noted that awareness and conscious choice are crucial. The introvert who understands their own tendencies, who recognizes when to retreat and when to engage, can move through life with intentionality. Silence, reflection, and introspection are not passive states. They are active tools for navigating complexity. By consciously honoring their nature, introverts avoid the pitfalls of burnout, miscommunication, and superficiality. They cultivate insight that informs action and influence that emanates from depth rather than volume. Ultimately, Jung's message is one of empowerment. Introversion is not a limitation, it is a guide. Denying it leads to inner conflict, while embracing it opens pathways to creativity, wisdom, and profound self-knowledge. By integrating the shadow, balancing inner and outer worlds, and honoring one's authentic self, introverts unlock a life of depth and meaningful impact. As we approach the conclusion of this journey, it becomes clear that the introverted path is not about conformity or visibility. It is about alignment, understanding, and conscious living. The wisdom of Jung reminds us that the silent power within is both fragile and formidable. Fragile when ignored, formidable when embraced. In the final part, we will bring this journey together, reframing introversion as a hidden gift and offering a closing reflection that empowers every introvert to claim their strength. Part 10. Powerful Closing. As we reach the final chapter of this journey, it is essential to step back and reflect on what we have discovered about introversion, the quiet, often misunderstood, yet profoundly powerful way of being. From Carl Jung's archetypes to the spiritual depth of introspection, from the struggles in the modern world to the ways introverts can harness their silent power, we arrive at a simple yet profound truth. Introversion is not a limitation. It is a hidden gift. The world may not always recognize the strength in silence. It often measures presence by volume, attention by visibility, and influence by immediate impact. Yet for the introvert, true power lives in the spaces between words, in the unspoken, in the depth of thought that precedes action. The strength of the introverted mind is subtle but enduring. It is present in the patient observation of life, in the quiet analysis of patterns, in the creation of something lasting from the fertile grounds of reflection. This gift, however, comes with responsibility. To live fully as an introvert is to honor your inner world while engaging with the outer one in a way that is authentic and intentional. It is to balance reflection with action, solitude with connection, and silence with meaningful expression. It is to set boundaries without fear, to think deeply without hesitation, and to create without seeking immediate approval. In embracing your true self, you transform not only your own life, but also the lives of those around you. The introvert's path is not always easy. There will be moments of misunderstanding, of feeling invisible, or of questioning the value of quiet reflection in a loud world. Yet, these moments are also opportunities. Opportunities to reaffirm your own strength, to cultivate resilience, and to claim your place as a thoughtful, insightful, and powerful presence. The world may not understand your silence, but that silence is where insight is born, where creativity blooms, and where true influence takes root. Remember the lessons we have explored, the archetypes that guide you, the spiritual depth that sustains you, the struggles that challenge you, and the strategies that empower you. They are all part of the same journey, a journey inward that equips you to engage outwardly with clarity, confidence, and authenticity. The path of introversion is not a retreat from the world. It is a conscious choice to engage on your own terms, to contribute deeply, and to honor your own inner truth. So, as you move forward, embrace your silence, trust your reflection, value your solitude. Let the quiet strength within guide your thoughts, your creativity, and your actions. The world may measure power by noise, but you know a different truth. Power is found in depth, in patience, and in the courage to be authentically yourself. The journey of the introvert is not one of hiding. It is one of awakening. It is not one of weakness. It is one of enduring, silent strength. And in this awakening you discover that your introversion is not something to be corrected, suppressed, or hidden. It is a gift to be honored, a strength to be cultivated, and a power to be shared. The world may not understand your silence, but within it, you will find your truth, your wisdom, and your power. This is the gift of introversion. This is your quiet, unshakable strength.